What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Rojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and create a life and business they love. And I'm speaking extra fast today, Peter, because today's topic is on energy.
You think you were speaking extra fast?
Can't you tell I'm speaking extra fast right now?
I'm a maniac, right? And you'll see what I mean by that when you start listening to this episode.
That's right. So listen, man, we're talking about energy, right? And I don't know if there's a more important thing physiologically overall than energy. Like if you don't have energy, nothing gets done. Like if you don't have energy, you're not going to get your work done. You're not going to spend time with your family. You're not going to go to the gym. You're not going to, do any of the things you need to do. And so I figured this is a really important topic to talk about. And the person I know that has the most energy is Teresa Nelson, which is one of our Life Inner coaches. And she's also very well versed in the nutritional realm. She's when it comes to the natural nutrition, and she's really gone on the self journey of educating herself and now sharing and helping other people with this. So I'm excited to have her on the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I concur with what you just said, man. When it comes to Teresa, I'm talking about having energy. I've hung out with her many times. I've never seen her not have energy. It's amazing. It's contagious how she has the energy. One thing I will say, we didn't touch on this episode is glitter. I guess that has nothing to do with energy. So, but if you know Teresa, she's a big glitter fan. But here's the thing. Listen to this episode very carefully because, like Rojo said, energy matters in so many different areas of your life. And she gives some really good concrete things that you can do, that you can put in today, that you can start doing today and start implementing to be able to regain energy in your life. That's
it. Here we go right now. Interview. Teresa Nelson. Here we go.
Go. All right. Yeah. Go.
Teresa, what's up? Welcome to the Life Inner Show. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Starting off with enthusiasm. I didn't expect anything less. So right. Listen, tell our people a little bit about you, your kind of background. I know, so especially as it relates to health, fitness, vitality, all of these things. Where did you get your start? Why is this such a big thing for you? And why have you chosen to embrace this and help so many other people with it now too?
Okie dokie. Well, I guess we'll start that I started out as a stay-at-home mom. I am a mother of 3 kidlets, and nobody is shorter than me anymore. So I've got a 13, 21-year-old and a 25-year-old. I've been married for, actually, I had that backwards, 24-year-old, and I'm married 25 years. And my family, I grew up pretty well, very happy family, but my parents were both obese. So, later on, like after I started like having kids, I started noticing like a lot of health. My mom was like really fatigued. And then my dad started getting, a lot of things. He got diabetes, he had prostate cancer, he got cellulitis, he got a lot of different things. And so, I kind of had an inkling. I never was a junk food eater. Now I did eat, not so well growing up, but it wasn't like my predominant diet. So I kind of had an inkling that there was something there, but it didn't really take off. And until like say after Mexico, when I was there for a while, so that was about 1994, then I started diving in and really looking at just alternative methods just for my own like growth personally. And that also led to like a lot of nutritional stuff. So I was able to jump in and help, my parents specifically. And then it just kind of branched. People would sit next to me and pretty soon I'd know all about great grandma's digestive problems. And, I wouldn't even have to ask. So it was, it just like leaks off onto me and it never annoyed me. And so I was like, maybe there's something here. And so again, the more that I would like discover something, the more I wanted to learn. And I just dive in like some kind of a geek. It's funny, I don't know right from left, but I can just dive into medical studies and be there forever and ever. And, or people's like anecdotals and looking at all these different cases and stuff. It just fascinates me and it thrills me to no end. And then when I can share that with other people and give them hope to their situations and just, get them to feel better and have more optimism and things about their life in general. It floats my boat like nobody's business. I just absolutely love it.
I hear that she loves to dive in people's digestive problems. That's what excites her. That's what she loves talking about.
Y'all up in your business.
Well, Peter is a great candidate for that. Then you guys can talk offline. So what I hear though, is that you saw a problem, and like your parents especially, and you saw the effects of poor health, and and that's where you saw the need and the passion to help someone. And then from there, it kind of sounds like it just spiraled, and you saw more and more opportunities.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And like Kirk's mom and dad, that's my husband. His mom and dad, like were big time into like nutrition and alternative health, and his sister's a natural doctor. So it just like, I was around my people, and it leaked off on everybody else. And now I, for the most part, have, everybody in my little tribe, they sneak away from me and do things. But for the most part, everybody's on board on, doing better, and they understand, the relevance of, it's not just because you have to be perfect, but it really does have consequences. And, nobody knows when you're going to check out, but I say that as long as you're going to be here, it should be as good and as vital as long as possible. And so along those lines, I was going to ask you, like, so you believe there's there's a balance of somewhat, so you can still like kind of do the things that that aren't going to make you like a hermit chewing on a piece of bark or something like that. Ish. So like, say for me generally on my own, I don't have a problem just sticking to something, and being completely disciplined, but because for me, I don't see like a loss or anything like that. But that's been like a learning curve for me too, is to not expect 100% compliance from other people, because there is a balance, I think, because if, you want a good life, you have to get quality of life. And if somebody's miserable because they're not eating like everybody else or not getting to partake in certain events, because in America, especially, food is very cultural, and, in our daily lives, I mean, it's how we join together. It's, how people bond, it's nourishment. It's just, there's so many different elements of that. And so, like I said, for, other people to expect compliance in that, now you're making it miserable, and now you're depriving quality of life. So I don't think that one should trump over the other. There should be a balance.
Yeah. Well, when I used to compete in bodybuilding, it would be short periods of time where, 3 months, maybe I have to eat on a schedule like a robot. I wasn't going to go to a restaurant. I don't care if they told me it was chicken breast that had no oil, no salt, no butter. I was just, if I didn't cook it, I wasn't eating it, but that wasn't sustainable. And so for people to find that pattern that is like, what's sustainable for you. And I think that's the key here, right? Like, it's not a short-term thing, and you got to find that balance with the occasional indulgence, but ultimately like making sure that you are focusing on more healthy than less healthy. And I guess everybody's in a different situation too, genetically, like some people are predisposed to certain things. And, we talked before the episode began about there's so many health issues going on in our culture these days, from obesity to high blood pressure to diabetes to all these things. Right. But we specifically talked about something that I think almost everyone can relate to, which is feeling a lack of energy. How much is this related to health habits, and how much of it is, related to just like, especially as you age, you just get more tired? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I think it's probably like a trifold. I think it's definitely nutritional. I also think there is like, there's the biological factors, of like some things that you could be dealing with, some genetic, issues, also aging. And I also think it is like in attitude and mannerisms. I think that, the epigenetics of things, I think have a lot to do with it. Like, say an example, if you were to ask me, how am I doing? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But if I say, I'm great, I'm having a fabulous day, I just like shot out energy, and you will reciprocate it, and the whole energy of the situation runs up. So that's, that's that outside element. But I think nutrition has predominantly the main effect, and then sleep would come in next. And then, like I said, then like your nutrition is like the top dog, really.
Right. Well, I remember Tony Robbins several years ago saying this. He's like, he was, now at that point, I think he was in his probably 50s, maybe late 50s. And he was saying how, when he was younger, it was all about looking good and benching 300 pounds and having muscles. For him, now it's all about energy. And I kind of remember saying to myself then, like, I want both. Like, I don't want to, if I'm not happy with the way I look, I'm not going to like that either. And so what are some of the things that people can do? Like, because, I hear, and the reason why I think maybe even as a culture, I look at things like, people are drinking 4 cups of coffee a day to stay awake, and they're having energy drinks and the energy shots, and it's all about, and for me, like I do like feeling energized, like because I get more done, because for some strange reason I'm in a better mood. Like when I feel energy, I'm like, everything is, I just love it. So I'm trying to find this energy fix all the time until I go to bed, right? So what are some of the things that people can actually do? And we can talk about the nutrition, or we can talk about these other elements that you mentioned as well. But I'm fascinated with this topic of energy, and I'd like to hear like how do we get our listeners like to feel energized without necessarily just relying on chemicals?
First and foremost, I think you have to get your sleep right.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people, there's different theories on like your night owls and your morning people, but I honestly I think it's more rudimentary than that. It's, light and dark, and your body's supposed to produce hormones at certain, points according to what is going in through your eyes. And they'll tell your brain which hormones it's supposed to secrete, which gets you up and down. So like if, people are not sleeping correctly and staying up overnight, there's hormones are still kind of producing with the light. So let's say your cortisol, ends up like being up later, which means it's going to have a bigger dip later on. So it's not going to like naturally come up in the morning when you're supposed to be waking up. And then like, too much light in the evening, the artificial light, kind of messes with the melatonin and the serotonin and whatnot. So that the sleep is like paramount on first thing that you do. And you can make up sleep. I honestly believe, if you're deprived of it, that, sleeping in and trying to catch up, you can actually rebalance that, because your sleep cycle will catch up with the hormones that are out of cycle, and then they'll naturally sync. And then the light will come in and it'll all get back into balance, and you'll be in a regular sleep-wake cycle. If that made any sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want to, can you clarify on the sleeping? Because does that mean that I have to sleep 8 hours, or does that mean that I have to have, deep REM cycle? What does that actually mean?
Well, generally, I would say rarely there are very few people that can like hang out at like, say, 4 hours of sleep a night. There are some people, but most people, if they're getting 6 hours to 8 hours is ideal. The best part is like to, find out what your sweet spot is by like how energized you feel the next day. And energized would be like not with artificial energy. And I'll get into caffeine here in a minute, because that's a big like monkey hanging in the tree that nobody talks about really. They want it, all right?
Sorry. Couldn't resist.
Hold on, did you just make a monkey sound?
Couldn't resist. Just couldn't resist.
Oh my God, this is going downhill. All right, continue.
Okay, okay, where were we at?
Talking about see, the monkey sound came in.
Yeah, you mentioned caffeine being a monkey, but we're talking about hours of sleep and REM sleep.
Yes. So essentially, the deeper the sleep, and this would be, getting I call it sleep hygiene, making sure that your room, is dark. You're not on the phone, like say an hour before bed, because that blue light obviously stimulates the wrong hormones. And then just having a wind down process, make sure that you're not eating later at night, so that you're actually resting and not digesting, so your system doesn't go all the way into that deeper cycle. And then, making sure that you don't have like a lot of stress, which would also keep you up psychologically, and then you're not going to get into that. So ideally, you start out with like, say, a 6 to an 8 hour period and play around with it, for like the time you go to bed, and then whatever time you naturally wake up. That gives you a good cycle and a good game plan to get started on that. And then there's other ways, somebody could contact me later on too, to specifically hone in, because everybody's got different, reasons. Like say if they're completely jacked up on medication or other stimulants, like caffeine, then, that's going to mess with that. And you have to like step down out of it to get into that sleep. So I definitely think that, sleep has to come first.
Right. So I want to ask a follow-up question, which might bite me actually, this follow-up question. What's your feeling about naps in the middle of the day?
Okay. I'm glad you brought this up, because I am ashamed of myself, but I've made fun of Wojo for his naps.
I make fun of him all the time too. That's what I'm saying. Might bite me. I think it's going to bite me here.
No, I do believe that It benefits. I do. I can see the benefit. If you need it, you should have it because it does recharge. As long as you're not going like say over a 15-minute period, because you've got your when you go into your original sleep cycle. So say if you were down for 20 minutes, you've got like a 15-minute nap in there, give or take. And I don't see that being a problem. I still snicker because I haven't quite needed a nap yet, but I see where.
So are you saying that, are you saying that once you get past certain age, that's when the naps need to come in?
Aren't I, Wojo? That might not be true.
Peter's looking for an angle right here, Teresa. I'll tell you, he makes fun of me. He says, "What do you need, a bottle and a blanket too?"
That's how I sound. So okay.
So
happy nappy.
So there's so much here, and so a few things. Number one, Peter, how much sleep do you need? Have you ever tracked how much sleep you need, like on average?
I need about 7.5 hours.
Okay, I'm about 7 hours. Teresa, what about you?
I'm around about 7.5.
Okay, because this is where like I naturally will wake up after I haven't used an alarm unless I have like a flight somewhere, which is a rarity. I don't set an alarm. I just wake up, and I'm usually up around 6:30, 7 in the morning. Just my body wakes up. And then, so you mentioned light and some of the conditions that are conducive to sleeping. So a cold room, a cool room, dark room, no electronics, ideally. I actually like also some white noise in the background. So we have like a little air purifier, but I know some people use sound machines too. I've heard about weighted blankets being helpful too. I've never tried that. And then Peter has this, like the pink masks you put over your eyes. Is that help too? Or is that just for fashion that he does that?
It does help. It does help that darker environment.
Okay.
By the way, how do you know about that? Are you like
we share rooms every time every time we do a Get a Life, we share a room.
Which, by the way, I know you mentioned earlier about part of it is about some people are looking good, making sure they look good. Wojo mentioned it. Obviously, he gave up on that a long time ago. So I'm just.
So, all right. So we got some real tips there for sleep at night. And for naps, like this is weird too, but I don't set an alarm for naps. I'll just lay down. Now for me, I usually do wake up. I don't know if this is bad or not. If I sleep too long, I definitely feel a little bit groggy later. But sometimes for me, about a half hour seems to feel really good. I kind of wake up and I'm like, all right, and I don't know how long of that is an actual nap. But I've been super blessed. I don't know if this is my genetics or I don't know if this is just training, but I can fall asleep like pretty quickly. Like, Peter and I will be like
30 seconds.
He'll be talking to me and he'll be like, dude, you still there? I'm like, okay. So that's some really solid tips. And so that's sleep. What else are some of the things we can do to feel more energized? Cause I'm doing naps, but sometimes I still feel like I don't have as much energy as I'd like. So what else we got?
Well, the second part, goes into like, say, the body, obviously. And part of that would be nutrition, making sure that it's not like a high glucose diet. Because anytime you've got like the elevated sugar, even if you were like, blood testing and you see that you're not really an elevated blood sugar, that's not really telling the whole story. Because if you've got extra fat on your body, that means that there's too much sugar in the system anyway, and it's just the liver can't deal with it. So it just makes a little fat cell and sends it off to go do something else. So, and that's where you start getting into some of that metabolic dysfunction, and your adrenals then, start getting overrun. And so it's just, I guess, looking at the mitochondria, and taking care of them. And there's several ways that you do that. And that's obviously eating very clean, going through fasting periods. And then also like say, immersion, like therapy, like with water, doing hot and cold showers works really good to stimulate the mitochondria because it gets that ATP, which is essentially the like little energy guy that makes you up and moving. It's the function of every single thing that you do.
So hot and cold showers stimulate mitochondria? I didn't know that.
Start out hot and then go to cold, and
because it's not painful. Yeah. So it's more painful than if you just went okay. That sounds terrible. So do you have any protocol for that? Like what's a general recommendation? Like, so somebody should do this. I guess you wouldn't want to do this before you go to bed then, right? Because it would wake you up. You do this.
No. Before you go to bed, a nice little, a warm shower, a bath.
Okay.
Would be ideal. Doing hot and cold therapy then is not so much because it'll definitely stimulate you, and you'll be like up and ready to run around the block.
So what's a good protocol for somebody that wants to try hot, cold showers?
Every morning, start out with like a minute of hot, and then do a full minute of like as cold as you can possibly do it, and then another minute, and then your final minute on the cold. And
so, okay. So basically hot, cold, and then you're done.
Yep. You got it.
Sounds terrible.
All right.
It is terrible.
Let me get right on that.
But it's, hey, listen, I went through this phase, but it wasn't for energy. It was just to like for mental toughness to make myself do it. Maybe I had some benefits there. Like we should just try this. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You go in the shower, and when it's cold weather, you go like, I'm a maniac. I'm a maniac.
You totally do that. Now you're like priming out on the outside and getting the inside. So see, that's a double whammy.
Dude, I'm gonna turn off our hot water heater in the house and just just make myself take cool showers.
I would love. Go ahead and do that. And next episode, see if you have a black eye.
And broken kneecaps.
right. Okay. So, all right. So hot, cold showers. What else you got? This is great.
Yes. Like I said, fasting. You can do some of the longer fast, which really stimulate the mitochondria. They get healthier, number one. And then also you can actually make other mitochondria. You don't have, it used to be thought that you only had a set amount in your cells, but what they're finding is that you can make more mitochondria. And the happier those guys are, the more that you've got in there, the more energy that you can produce. Also doing like some adaptogens, which are, herbs that very specifically, help your body to do what it's supposed to do. So it's not like caffeine is an artificial stimulant. Should I talk about caffeine first?
Let's not go there quite yet.
Okay.
I do have some questions about fasting though. Like, I've always been, so I've always been a little cautious about fasting for myself because I was never sure about the implications on anabolism in my body and the anabolic processes. I've always been afraid to I don't want my body to, I'm trying to hold on to the muscle I have. Like I've always been afraid about losing it. Is that a valid concern?
It used to be.
Okay.
But now it's pretty well set that when you hit like a certain point of like fasting, say if you're just a regular intermittent fasting, which would be anywhere from 14 to like say 18 hours. That's a good intermittent period. You're not going to get anywhere near muscle at all. Okay.
So I do that pretty much every day now, but I didn't really consider fasting.
That's very beneficial.
I was too lazy to eat. That was why I didn't eat. Like it's too much work.
So let me clarify something that 14, 18 hours thing that you're talking about, that's no food.
Yeah, that's no food.
Just water.
Just water or something?
Excuse me?
Just water or what
you could do water, you can do tea. I'd say you could do coffee in small amounts. But coffee has got its place, socially, I think, and then for like tiny little bits. But overall, I think it's overused and it's not beneficial. But yeah, you can have water. You can drink. I get a lot of people when I have them doing some other, fasting for like healing protocols and things. Then I have them like mix up this electrolyte, drink, and drink that. So it's just water with additional minerals in it, your electrolytes. So yeah, and you can even do like dry fasting without any food or water. But again, that's one of those things that gets into the more extreme, past that 12 to like say, or 14 to about 18 hour period. So, and that's more extreme. And you can only do that, like say rarely when it's healing or when you're really trying to stimulate a lot of cell turnover. So yeah, those are your best methods.
Okay. What about the longer fast? What are they for? Like are we talking about?
Definitely for cell regeneration and healing. Because after you hit, like, say, your 24-hour period, you go into like some really good cell regeneration. Your body will clean up everything that's basically trash in there. That's why you see when somebody's got, they go through like a really good fast and then they come off of it clean. You just see like a radiance about them. It's because they've had like a lot of regeneration and stuff in their cells. But too much, obviously, that when you have it turning over too fast, then the cell doesn't have enough time to, grow into a nice, healthy, well-formed cell, if that makes any sense. Too much fasting is not good, but doing it therapeutically for, specific things, like if you had digestive problems, the quick way around it, would be to go on a nice long fast and say like a 3-day fast. And believe it or not, your first day in the fast like that is the hardest because your body's just transitioning over from, the burning of the sugar and what's in your system to actually having to go into your system to get fat.
Right.
So back to your original, thing, Bojo, on the muscle, that when you go into, like, say, if you were to go into approximately, say, past a 10-day fast, then you really got to worry about that muscle breakdown. You would have, like, initially in your 3-day fast, you'll have a breakdown of that tissue, but it's just like when you're lifting, you'll have the tearing of the tissue and then it'll rebuild back because your growth factor gets pushed up so much and the testosterone also goes up that you rebuild it amazingly.
I've done a 24-hour fast a couple times, but never longer than that. I was afraid to shrink up into a twig and just like blow away in the wind.
Nope.
Right.
I mean, if you're doing it like consistently on like a lot, then yes, you have to worry about that.
Okay.
But no, on a regular, or not a regular, but an intermittent kind of periodical, like 3-day to a 5-day, sometimes even a 10-day, like once a year, is really beneficial for your body because it stresses the body enough and gets all that cleanup that when you regenerate, it's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, I've done like one was 60 hours fast. And it's interesting because like what you said, the first day you're like looking for food, right? Then when you pass that thing, I remember thinking, man, it would be so nice if I didn't have to make food and then just not eat because it's like, this is awesome. I'm saving a lot of time and then all that kind of stuff. And the hunger goes away, which is crazy to me. Yeah, and then, at a certain point you end it. So I kind of relate to what you're saying, but I just you mentioned at one point, you said that the possibility is something along that you might be doing it too much. Are you talking about too frequently or are you talking about too frequently? Okay.
It's too frequently. Say like you can fast every single day, ideally, like what Wojo is doing. You can do that 14 to like even 20 hours every single day and still be just fine and not get into any problems. But if you're doing like, say, a 3-day fast every single week, that's way too much. Your cells are going to be turning over it's just like cancer. You get those cells where they're growing way fast and it's never a good thing when the cells start overproducing like that.
Gotcha. Well, and so we talked about healthy nutrition. You mentioned low glucose meals. What else in regards to nutrition should we be looking at? Like, are we talking about essential fatty acids? Are we talking about high protein diet? Like, what are your recommendations?
Definitely, you want to make sure that you're getting the right kind of protein, which ideally is, animal protein, because it's got a whole profile of your amino acids that your body breaks down correctly. And then it sends it mostly to the muscle and for a lot of your vital organs. There are like vegetable, proteins and things that you can get some benefit, but some of the the anti-nutrients in there kind of contradict when you start getting too much of that. But definitely your healthy fats, which would be, avocado, any animal fat is really, really good for you. Fish oils, olive oil.
So hold on. Let me interrupt you quick. So animal fats are good. I have not, most people say like, hey, animal fats are bad.
Yes.
So what does that mean, animal fats? What are we talking about?
Like fat in a steak or something or
fat in a steak, tallow, any of the like kidney fat is absolutely amazing for people.
Kidney fat? What is that?
Fat.
That sounds disgusting, Teresa. So you can go to the grocery store and buy a kidney, and are you like? I don't think this is legal in the United States, Teresa. Like, this podcast is being broadcast in North America right now.
No, it's funny. Like my aunt, when I was little, because we had chickens, right? She would fry up kidney, the chicken. Yeah, I mean, it was good.
So okay,
yeah.
So how do you get kidney fat? Just out of curiosity.
Well, you could see like your butcher. You can go to any of your meat shops and get it. There's also some companies now that have started out, like making it into supplements, so it's a lot more digestible for people. Not that you can't digest it technically, but psychologically digesting.
Yeah, it's like,
so yeah.
I would call it something else. Don't even call it kidney. Make up a word. Like, yeah, don't even say it.
But no, it's into the superfood. There's so many nutrients in it.
Okay. Huh.
And it also passes the brain-blood barrier. So your brain is getting like a massive amount of nutrition.
I haven't heard that either.
And isn't that crazy?
Okay.
So
I'm out of the loop here. So, okay. All right. All right. And so what about stuff like how important is vegetables and things like that for this process of energy? Or is it just general
Vegetables
health?
are not as important as what we thought they were.
Ooh, okay.
Because of like the anti-nutrients. What's funny is that kids, if you look at like how kids are, first of all, when a baby is born, they're automatically ketogenic. So most of the breast milk is fat. There is like a little bit of glucose in there, just a minute amount, but predominantly you start out ketogenic if you're breastfed. And then, you go on and as they start eating solid foods, now fruits, they're a little bit more adaptable to because they don't have a lot of the anti-nutrients, but there's somewhat of an aversion to vegetables unless you put like additional things into it, which would be like salt, sweeten them up a little bit. The natural aversion it's not bad.
What are these anti-nutrients you keep referring to? I haven't heard of that term.
They're like the nitrates, the phytates. I can never say it.
I
can spell them all, but I can never say them. That's my
are those natural? Those are natural to the food source, or those introduced through? They're not introduced through like
completely natural.
Okay. Huh.
And when you think about it, it's just the defense system for the plant, from animals and other things coming in and actually attacking the plant. So it's just their chemical process that they send out. So when we're eating them in like smaller amounts, it's not having that kind of a detrimental effect. Like say some dogs will go up and eat a specific plant, right? And it'll have a very bad, or even cats will get into like house plants and it has a really bad effect on them. It's just the chemical components of the plant defending itself against a predator.
So I think we have to do a separate episode on this because I'm curious about, especially with such a movement towards vegan-based diets. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And some of the data that people kind of like to throw out there. Like, I'm curious to hear more about that, but this could be a wild goose chase for us right now. Yeah, it is. So, okay. So not really don't worry too much about the vegetables for energy purposes, at least. Okay. And then you mentioned adaptogens. Like, so explain those and define those for us.
That would be like, say, your ginkgo, you've got rhodiola. So a lot of your herbs and whatnot, they're just components that like stimulate your body to do what it's supposed to do. So it doesn't go in and like make your body produce the hormone artificially or, any of your energy sources, the extra ATP. What it does is it just like gives your body like an even playing field where it sends out what it's supposed to. So like in example, like rhodiola was used for a long time for like psychological, things. And then as the data started, and then we're talking like hundreds of years ago, rhodiola was used for a lot of, like I said, psychological and mood disorders in general. And then as, time has gone on and people have like really dove into it and looked, it does have a lot like with your energy, your sleep, your gene turnover. There's PQQ. There's a lot of really cool, substances out there that you just get from, herbs and your meat products and whatnot, that feed your energy. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And I could do a whole other show, on that right there.
So rhodiola, that's an herb?
Rhodiola. Mm-hmm.
So you get it like a root or you get it like a supplement or what is it?
In root form, but you can absolutely get it in supplement. And there's some good companies. And I tell people, like, obviously when they're going after their supplement sources, to make sure they didn't have like a lot of fillers or any of your allergens in there, which would be corn and soy, artificial flavorings, things like that. But there's some really good rhodiola products out there. PQQ is another one. And this is another gigantic name that I can't say. But it goes in and it really has a major effect on your cells and your genes, your sleep cycles. Even like taking it in the morning will help you sleep way later in the night. There's 5-HTP, which has a lot of really good benefits also for, producing a calming effect and also helps with your sleep, which then produces the energy for like the next day. And then there is, let's see here. Oh, golly, there's a whole bunch of them. There's some essential oils, which frankincense is in there for healing and also energy. There's a whole myriad of, different things. Like B12, a lot of people have got like a deficiency in B12. And tying back into like, say, caffeine, if you're having like a hard time adjusting off of caffeine or anything, that could be very well that you've got a B12 deficiency. The easiest way to find out would be to get, testing from your doctor or ordering your own labs, or you could even sublingually just put one underneath your tongue. And if you get a benefit from it, 9 times out of 10, you're vitamin B deficient. Also
seen
vitamin
D.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned vitamin B12, and it seems like I think I looked at it like a 5-hour energy, and it said like, vitamin B, like, percentage of recommended daily allowance. And it was like 10,000%.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Right.
like what is this okay? Should I be taking this?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, and the 5-hour energy has got like 2, and I don't remember, I'd have to look at the label and see. It's got like 2 or 3 things in there that actually are like caffeine. Like say, in example, there's cola nut, there's cacao, which is essentially chocolate. They don't have to disclose that they're caffeine actually. So it'll just list the ingredient, and you're taking a bunch of that, so you're getting that artificial stimulation. So like in the 5-hour energy, they've got the basic premise of it on their vitamin concoction of it, but the additional things that they add in there is what gives you the crash.
So speaking of that, how bad for you, well, first of all, is caffeine? And what about all these energy drinks out there right now? Are they that bad? Is it a crutch? Is it like, is it not too bad if in moderation? Like, what are your personal thoughts on that?
In all honesty, you should not be having, say, like more than 50 milligrams per day of caffeine. Most people far exceed that. Like say,
and which hour of the day are we talking right now?
Well, ideally, it should be in the morning if you're going to do it.
50 milligrams per hour.
Right. Exactly. No. So essentially what it does, caffeine artificially stimulates your adrenal glands. So you're actually, pumping out the adrenaline, and it's way too much adrenaline. So that's where you'll get your big highs. But because it wasn't supposed to come out at that rate, then that's where you've got the crash that comes afterward. Some people are like super duper sensitive to, caffeine, and they'll immediately they'll have it and they'll have like maybe a 20-minute period where they feel okay. And then they have an immediate crash. So like every time I have a cup of coffee, I get really tired. And it's because their adrenal glands are not, they can't put up with the stress of the caffeine, coming in. So, and it's just, if you always think of like caffeine as artificial energy, for like a little tiny bit of a benefit, it's got a high amount of antioxidants, which antioxidants are good. And every other premise, except for like say in training, like if you're training, you don't want to have like a high antioxidant load or anything, which is funny because a lot of people in some communities drink a bunch of caffeine before you go work out. So that's a double whammy there. You're getting into, stimulating the adrenal glands artificially. And then on top of that, you're getting the antioxidant, thing during the training phase. Let's see here. So the caffeine, it also goes into your brain, and it's an artificial stimulant in that relevant realm too. And I'm trying to think exactly what the chemical is that goes through. It's like an adrenaline receptor that it goes in and blunts. So it's more complex in its wording than what it really is. So it's going in there and saying, hey, there's a whole bunch of stuff coming in, and it fires out a ton of like fight or flight response. And again, that's where you start getting the burnout, because then you get where you can't function without having that higher energy level, right? Because of your brain and your adrenal glands are expecting it. Because when you artificially stimulate glands, like say, even taking melatonin, like at night when you don't need it, you're artificially stimulating it, and you're blunting the hormone process naturally happening. So then when you pull it off, then it can't produce it itself. So, and that's where you get into like, say, adrenal fatigue, is where your kidneys and your adrenal glands just don't have the receptors to be able to say, hey, you know what, we should be needing a kickstart here and kick out some adrenaline. And then you get into those periods where then you start having like other detrimental effects, because you're sleepy and your mood, and then you start eating worse, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. So caffeine, just the easiest way is to remember, it's artificial energy.
Right. Peter, you drink coffee, right?
In the morning. Yeah, I have a coffee cup in the morning. I used to listen. Here's the interesting thing is, in March, I went through this big detox, And before that, I would have coffee cup in the morning, then I'll have a coffee cup in the afternoon. And I 2-3 cups of coffee a day. It wasn't unusual. Went through the detox, and that coffee like craving went away. Now it's just a matter of like, I like having coffee. So in the morning I'll have a cup of coffee, but that's about it. I don't have that craving like I used to do for that coffee. So I think there was some kind of a system reset, I guess, if you call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So listen, so I want to ask you something, because there's a lot of stuff that you threw out on here, and there's really great information, right? But, and Vojo he supposedly has some kind of a PhDs in similar areas of here that you're talking about. So I think he probably gets it. For me, half of the stuff is like whoosh, over the head, right? So for regular Polak, right, or anybody else here, what would you say when it comes to energy? What are like the top 3 things that you should focus on? Because one of the things I've learned from myself is, somebody told me this months before, maybe it was you even, listen to your body, right? To what it says and how it responds and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of feel like I've been starting to doing that. But what are like the top 3 things that you would say to them when it comes to energy?
Getting their sleep right, putting their nutrition in check, and also looking at the language that they use. Because if you say, oh, I'm tired all the time, I'm sick and tired. What's funny is you think it, you say it, you hear it. So it's coming in several different ways. And then again, that'll affect you psychologically. And so you feel it, number one. And then on top of that, you do the things that reinforce that. Eating to feel better, so then you'll get those crutch foods. And like I said, so you have to have your language correct also. So eating and sleeping and your language would be your best bets. And then if somebody needed like some supplementation, I would say start with B12. And then you can go into looking at some of the other herbs.
Okay. Do you have like types of food that you should avoid when it comes to energy?
Yes. Sugar is not your friend. And I mean, it's actually more detrimental. Caffeine, like when you get way high doses of caffeine, that's where it becomes like where it's really dangerous. It's not beneficial, in most ways, but it's not as dangerous as like sugar, even at small amounts. Your body has got the ability to, make all the sugar that it needs. And what's funny is there's a process called gluconeogenesis, where you go in and you'll pull muscle from the body, and it'll make it into glucose, which goes into, obviously your brain and runs some of those systems. You only need literally just a minute amount, and your body knows how to make exactly what it needs. So sugar is one of those things that you absolutely have to stay away from, both artificial and, the natural form. So even if it says organic sugar, it's still creating the same metabolic process. And then on top of that, looking at like, say, a sugar is a sugar is a sugar. So anything that turns to glucose in the body essentially is, sugar. So you've got like a high carbohydrate, and I'm not talking about carbohydrates from vegetables, but I'm saying like a high carbohydrate from refined carbs, or just even from any of the grains, which would be corn, wheat, soy, spellet, any grain really, millet, barley, any of those. Then too much of that, you're going to spike the glucose, and it's just, like I said, sugar is a sugar. So 100% staying away from that.
All right. That's great.
Cut through and you'll feel better.
I love that advice. Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
That's very cool.
And Teresa, just to wrap up this kind of trifecta that you mentioned regarding like the things you say and what you think, like what are some general things to try to do, to start to do, as well as some things to avoid when you're talking about the language you use?
Oh, okay. Well, I think one of the things, like really kind of take track of yourself and listen to what you say throughout a day, or have somebody else, your kids are like an amazing thing to follow you around, and just be taking dictation on the things that you're saying. Because sometimes it's so ingrained in your habits, you don't know that you're saying it. Like, people with like money or luck, I never have good luck, or, things like that. It just comes out. You're not even like thinking out loud that I have such terrible luck. It's just something that pops out of your mouth. So if you can pay attention to that, and like I said, have the kiddos follow you around and take dictation. And then start to make conscious effort to say affirmations, to change your way, like putting it into your vision, or like little vision bullet points on, specific things to changing your language. I also think, approaching life like from a child's point of view. I mean, you don't have to be like completely immature and blow everything. But I think that if you live like the spirit of a child and like are happy and are curious to like see things, and when you see it, you, show some joy for it. It totally changes, the energy and how you feel about yourself, and just in general, how you interact with other people. So I think approaching life like a child is very, very beneficial.
Right. I love that. By the way, if you do ask your kids a little caveat, be ready for it. If you ask your kids to track you, just be ready for it. They will like pull everything out.
It's even worse.
Well, Teresa, this has been super beneficial. You have the most energy out of anyone I know, so clearly you're doing something right. And so I hope our listeners and viewers got something out of this. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, Teresa has a stack of Life in Air books behind her and a Life in Air license plate. I love that. I'm jealous.
That's for my car that's no longer in commission, so I'm saving it for my next car.
That's fine. Okay, awesome. Well, hey, for all you are and all you do, thank you on behalf of our listeners, and I'm sure we'll get you back for another episode with so many topics to discuss within your realm of expertise. Thanks, Teresa.
Yes, thank you.
Man, there you have it. The energy, right? Like, so Teresa summed it up really well. Focus on your sleep, eat the right things, look at some nutritional support in terms of supplements. I don't know. That was an awesome episode. I feel like I got some real value from that.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, the stuff that she talked about, it's not some crazy rocket science, right? I mean, and that's a cool thing about it, because she talked about the stuff that we can literally implement today. Sleep, right? Right food, avoiding certain foods. There are some, what do they call them? Like the roots or herbs that she mentioned, which I can't even pronounce. So I'm not even going to try it.
Don't even try to take it if you can't pronounce it.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, but it's not that far off. Think about it. The one big takeaway that I got from this particular interview is that if you don't have a lot of energy to getting to having a lot of energy, you're not that far off from regaining that energy, right? If you just implement certain things, start listening to your body, you might be regaining that energy faster than you think it is. And one thing that she did mention at one point, but it wasn't like the problem age, right? It's not like once you hit certain age, that's just how it is. You don't need energy. You don't have to have energy, right? You can have energy when you're 80, 90, 100 years old.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah. The other thing I think that's interesting about energy is like, it's one of those things you become acclimated to. And so if you're used to having a level 5 energy on a scale of 1 to 10, you kind of just get used to it. And it's not until you either lose energy that you notice it, or that you gain energy and you're like, wow, I thought this was just the way I was. And I thought this is just how it is. And then all of a sudden you have a breakthrough, because now you feel different and you realize there's a difference there. And so it's, I've heard that from several people that have changed their diet, who have started sleeping more, and they're like, dude, I'm thinking more clearly. I have more energy. I'm in a better mood, and all these things are kind of tracked down to the same changes being made. So that's a cool thing too, is like the same changes that you're going to make to have more energy are also the same changes that you'll make to become more healthy. And so there's a strong relationship there too. If you're not healthy, you're not going to have energy. Right. And so I think that's an interesting observation.
Right. The other big takeaway I gotten from this is, when it comes to this and a lot of different things in life, especially like energy, we get into this vicious circle, right? So for instance, let's say just using caffeine, like coffee, right? I drink a cup of coffee and then I notice that my energy goes down. So I drink another coffee. Yeah. Then I have good, then energy goes on another coffee. And before you know it, within months or years, you have so many coffees you drink throughout the day. And it's the vicious circle that coffee is going to give you energy. However, it's like what she's talking about, starting to eliminate some of these things will actually give you the energy, right? So we tend to get into this circle of what it gives us energy, as opposed to really looking at what to do to give us the energy. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
I think I know what you're trying to say. Yeah. It becomes a positively reinforcing cycle. So if you cut back caffeine, you're going to go through a dip, but eventually you'll create energy on your own, and that's going to increase your energy versus having a caffeine crashing, having another caffeine crashing, and then you have more and more and more caffeine through supplementation, through drinking coffees, through energy drinks, and it just keeps you suppressed in energy. So it kind of creates that cycle. Yeah, that's a good point, man.
One not so good takeaway I got from this is the fact that she talked about having naps being good things. So I'm just like,
sorry, bro.
Not another one.
Well, there it is. Hope you guys benefited from this. Hope you found it valuable. Energy is huge, and so we hope that you implement some of these things in your own life and let us know how it goes. If you would like to leave us a review, tell us what you thought of the episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave us a review wherever you download your podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Google Store, or somewhere else. And also, if you would like to be part of the conversation, Teresa, by the way, is in our Life Inner app. If you've been a listener for a while, you've heard us mention the Life Inner app. This is a place where our discussions, our conversations are going on over there every day. And you can be part of that right now. Learn to, not only pick Teresa's mind, but you can learn to live this Life Inner lifestyle, because energy is part of it too, right? You can't have the life you want unless you're having the energy to enjoy it. And so head over to the app. You can download it on your mobile device. We'll check it out at lifeinner.com. And until next time, live free and with energy. See you next time, everyone.